Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is 10 to Life, where we talk all things true crime. So if you're brand new stopping by for the first time, welcome, and I hope you enjoy today's case video. And if you do, please consider subscribing to the channel by hitting that subscribe button below and turning your notification bell to on so that you get notified as soon as I upload new case videos or go live with real-time case updates as trials and hearings and breaking news happens. And for all of my returning 10 to Lifers, welcome back. So happy to have you guys with me today. I want to give you guys a little quick disclosure about the case we're talking about today. It ain't easy, guys. Not that any of them are, but this one is definitely not. Even as I was just reading through the research and, gathering some information, there were a few times where I had to pause and just kind of be like, maybe not. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's not about my comfort or yours. It's about bringing justice and awareness to these cases and these victims who no longer have a voice. But still wanted to put that little PSA out there ahead of time. This story is about a little girl named Jessica Mast, just 4 years old. And this case will leave you wondering how there are such evil people in this world and truly what is wrong with some humans out there. So buckle up and let's get right into it.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
Jessica Mast was an adorable 4-year-old little girl. She lived with her parents, James and Mary, her 2-year-old brother Nathaniel, and her 10-month-old brother Justin. Nathaniel actually also had a twin named Nathan, who was a stillborn, unfortunately. Her family lived in Lincoln, Missouri, and Lincoln is in Benton County. And for reference, this is about 100 miles southeast of Kansas City. Benton is a very small county of less than 20,000 people, and it's typically pretty quiet and a quaint area. But it's also an area that is filled with many religious people, and it has quite a large Anabaptist presence, mostly Mennonite and Charity Church members. And Jessica's family was in the Anabaptist realm. Her parents were in the Chariot ministries up until a few months before 4-year-old Jessica's death. And the Chariot ministry is known for its radical beliefs. They are essentially Mennonites in many ways, but they do have a couple of differences. One of the main differences is the way the church absolutely applauds physically hurting children. Yes, you heard that right. Physically hurting children. In fact, they have, or at least had in the past, a room in their main church specifically for spanking children. They would use paddles with holes drilled into them so that they were more aerodynamic and would sting worse, but ultimately not leave marks or bruises. And as if the forceful spanking isn't bad enough, parents are actually encouraged to continue hitting their children until they completely go limp or until they give up and submit to their parents. I mean, honestly, guys, WTF, what the heck is going on? And they start this practice with babies under 1 year old, sometimes as early and as young as just 3 months old. Former attendees say that the room was even soundproofed at one point, so you couldn't hear the screams, you couldn't hear the yelps, or the paddle smacking itself. And why would they do this? It's because they believe that you can essentially beat the demons out of people, including young children and babies. It is absolutely extreme and disgusting. So 4-year-old Jessica was brutally murdered on December 19th, 2020. The sheriff arriving to the scene described it as the worst case that he had ever seen. And the cause? An alleged exorcism, and parents who not only failed to protect this innocent young girl, but who also participated in these horrible acts. At 12:40 a.m. on December 20th, 2020, officers were called to the home where the Mast family lived by the father and husband, James Mast. Officers were warned of a domestic dispute with the possible death of a juvenile female. But nothing could have prepared the officer for what he was about to witness and what he was about to see firsthand. When Officer Wilson walked into the house, James appeared fairly calm. He told the officer that his 4-year-old daughter Jessica was upstairs. The officer went up there and found Jessica's lifeless body on the floor next to a set of bunk beds. She was wrapped in a pink blanket, was cold to the touch, and her eyes were partially open. When Wilson removed the blanket, he saw extreme bruises up and down Jessica's body. He says that there were bruises on both sides from her neck to her feet, and that it also looked like possible belt marks. Jessica also had opened wounds on the back of her legs and looked as though she had blisters that had ruptured. She also had wet hair and had vomit next to her head. Truly a horrifying scene for anybody to witness. Walking in and seeing this 4-year-old girl in that state physically, like the shock you must feel, the anger, the disgust, the heartbreak. I can't imagine, guys. I just can't. So Wilson asked James what had happened, and James said that the neighbors came into the house and physically attacked and hurt Jessica. These neighbors lived across the street from the Mast family, but it was a bit of a walk due to the land that they each had. He tells Wilson that he has video of the neighbors coming inside, but that each time they would come inside, they would unplug the security cameras. He tells the officer, too, that the neighbors had made him watch as they attacked his 4-year-old daughter, Jessica, and that at one point, little Jessica even tried to run to him, to her dad, for comfort. James then tells the officer that the belt that he used was his belt and that it was from his bedroom. I mean, first of all, who watches their child go through this and who doesn't step in to help? But even worse, who the heck lets someone do this to their child with their own belt? It is mind-boggling, guys. At that point, you are just as guilty for not protecting your child. So the officer went to James' bedroom, where Mary, his wife and Jessica's mother, was with their 11-month-old son, Justin. Mary's face was extremely swollen, and she tells the officer that the neighbors did that also, and says, "This has been a huge God thing that they have convinced us of." And that's a quote. She told the officer that the baby she was with in the bedroom, 11-month-old Justin, had not, however, been physically touched. Thank God. Thank God. So James shows the officer the video of these neighbors coming in and looking through Mary's phone, whispering to each other, and then unplugging both of the security cameras. And this happened around 8 a.m. on the morning of the murder. James tells the officer that he didn't call for help because the neighbors told him that he would go to hell and that things would be pinned on him. And also, the neighbor said that they would beat him up too if he told. So, for James' own eternal sake of not going to hell and his selfish attempt at avoiding a black eye himself, as a grown man who can certainly handle a black eye, he's going to let these people beat the crap out of his daughter and his wife? Pretty sure he'd go to hell for letting somebody harm his family while he just sits complicit and watches. He wouldn't go to hell for calling for help for somebody to come and protect his 4-year-old daughter. He also tells police that the neighbors took video of Mary hurting their 2-year-old son, Nathaniel, and that the neighbors forced her to do that. He said that they were planning on using that video to pin things on Mary, but that he and Mary did not regularly hit the kids, that this was an isolated incident that they were forced into doing. The officer then spoke with Mary again, and she said that they were told that they were being beaten by the neighbors for God, and that she believed it until it started getting serious. Now, I'm sorry, Mary, but one hit on any child is serious enough. At what point did you realize that this was serious? She said the neighbor said that she and her 4-year-old daughter, Jessica, were demonic. First of all, that's insane. But second of all, so what? You're going to let someone wail on your child because of that? It makes absolutely zero sense. Mary agreed that all of these beatings and bruises were over the course of many days and weeks, not just that isolated day, meaning that little 4-year-old Jessica went through this pain for days, for weeks. She told the officer that she did have another son and that he was in a different room and had been badly hurt as well, referring to her 2-year-old son, Nathaniel. So when the officer went into the room, he noticed Nathaniel in the crib. Nathaniel's midsection and upper thighs were severely bruised. Luckily, EMS was on the scene, and they were able to immediately take care of the little boy. Photographs were taken, and CPS was, of course, contacted to remove the 2 living children from the home. And when the officer told Mary about CPS coming, she responded by saying, "I understand, that's fine, I shouldn't have fallen for it." I'm sorry, fallen for what? Nobody tricked you or coerced you into doing this. You, my friend, were complicit. So who exactly are these neighbors? Well, their names are Courtney and Ethan. And this story becomes very, very twisted when you get down to how these people and how everyone actually knew each other. So they all come from very, very uber religious backgrounds under the Anabaptist umbrella. Ethan's dad was a preacher, and Courtney was actually recently sent to live with Ethan for counseling. But Ethan has a wife named Phyllis, and even though he has a wife, he moved Courtney into his bedroom, stating that they needed to be closer for spiritual counseling. Phyllis girl, you in danger, girl. Courtney and Ethan were obviously having a sexual relationship. And at one point too, though, Courtney was actually living with James and Mary as well, the neighbors. And as counseling would have it, when Mary was heavily pregnant, James was Courtney's counselor. And he at one point had said that he was going to take her to another counselor, but instead of doing that, he disappeared with Courtney to a cabin for 2 weeks. In fact, Mary gave birth to Jessica while Courtney and James were at that cabin together. Oh, no big deal, just over here birthing a child while you're off in a love shack with some chick, but that's all right. See you soon, honey. See you soon, honey. Don't worry about it. According to a former Anabaptist, James and Courtney were still having a sexual relationship together during the entire period leading up to the death of Jessica. And in fact, the rumor has it that Mary and James' 11-month-old son Justin is actually Courtney and James' baby, and that Mary was just taking care of him for her. I mean, guys, this has I don't even know, all these different crazy things written all over it. Now, this would make sense because their religion, we know, allows infants to be harmed, and Justin was untouched throughout all of this. So why would he remain untouched and the other 2 kids badly hurt unless Courtney had a vested interest in Justin's well-being? Making me believe that it is likely she possibly is his birth mother, but it has not been confirmed. And since Courtney was technically the other woman, could this whole thing have been orchestrated and done out of jealousy? Possibly. So now that we've established who the neighbors are, we can discuss the events that took place on the day of Jessica's death and prior leading up to it. So as I mentioned, James had said that these beatings had been taking place for 3 to 4 weeks, and he showed officers the bruising all over his butt and stated that they hit him with a wooden spoon as well. Mary, too, was a target of these attacks, and her back was almost entirely covered in purple bruises. After Ethan and Courtney came over that day, they unplugged the cameras, and Mary says that they were showing their 2-year-old and James videos of Nathaniel. And in these videos, which they had because they were apparently watching the security cameras, he was getting in the baby walker, climbing on the table, fussing, disobeying. I mean, typical 2-year-old behavior here. They were showing James these videos because they said that he was not there to train his children since he was gone a lot. Train or raise. But it was true. James was gone a lot, and that's why he had security cameras installed in the first place, but not for this purpose. It was for his family's safety. So Mary had said that the neighbors would often talk through the microphone on the cameras asking Nathaniel what was the matter. And Mary said that Courtney and Ethan didn't allow her to ever discipline Nathaniel and said that she gets too angry and that her relationship with him isn't good due to that. Seriously, what? It's time to cut the cord with these crazy weirdo neighbors. Time to cut the cord and get them out of your life. Courtney and Ethan began spanking Nathaniel and didn't stop, saying that it continued because he was not laying still enough during the initial spanking. They essentially wanted him to lay perfectly still while they spanked him. Now, no adult could do that, let alone a 2-year-old. So the couple leaves, the neighbors leave, and then they come back somewhere around 5 or 6 p.m. when they then see Jessica fussing on the camera. So they began hitting her with a belt, and the point of that was for her to also lay still and accept it. I mean, honestly, what? So Mary tells the officer that Jessica wasn't going to lay still unless there were extremes put in place, and that then Ethan had to start hitting her very hard with the belt as well. That is your daughter, Mary. That is your daughter. Courtney and Ethan told Mary and James that they wouldn't do this to a little girl. They would only do this to a demon. Essentially, they were saying that Jessica was a demon, and that's why they were doing this. Now, what breaks my heart, and honestly, I apologize in advance, you may want to get the Kleenex here, is Jessica tried running to her dad, James, for help. But he was running around the table trying to avoid her. And then Courtney and Ethan were chasing after Jessica while hitting her as she was trying to run for help to her dad. Almost like it was some twisted, sick game of tag or something. She also tried running to her mom, Mary, but Mary and James were allegedly told that they would be beaten or shot and would go to hell if they tried to help Jessica. Now, I'm sorry, if somebody is hurting my son and my son is running to me for help, first of all, they would never lay a hand on him in the first place, but if he was running to me for help, I don't care if somebody tells me that I would be beaten, shot, skinned alive. I don't care. I am consoling my boy, my child, and I am protecting him with every ounce in me. And they were too scared to do that. They said, well, we didn't want to go to hell. We didn't want to be beaten or shot. So we had to run away from Jessica as she ran to us for help. In fact, when Jessica tried running to Mary, Mary ran away from her but wasn't fast enough, and Jessica was able to grab onto her dress. And Mary tells the officer, it's hard when you try to run away from your little girl. I bet it is. I bet it is, Mary. And she also says that she believes that's why she ended up getting beaten badly that night, because she didn't run away fast enough from her daughter, Jessica. So after beating Jessica, Mary was then forced to take Jessica out to the pond and dip her in and then lay her back on the bank without any clothes. Now, if you've ever been to the Midwest in December, you know it is cold, especially at night. You can't just get into a pond when temperatures are well below freezing and then also be ice cold, dripping wet. So Mary laid Jessica on the bank and then swam around the pond herself until Courtney and Ethan told her that she could come back, as though it was some form of punishment. So when they all came back inside, Ethan and Courtney tried making 4-year-old Jessica stand up, but she wouldn't stand up. Obviously, she couldn't after what she endured. So that because she wasn't standing up, they continued hitting her with the belt. And eventually they told James, just get her out of here. Just get her out of here. And James took Jessica upstairs, laid her in her bed naked because they still weren't allowed to clothe her. James says that he covered her up with a blanket, left a cup of water for her on the side, and then turned up the heater because he thought her arms and legs were cold. Yeah, obviously. I seriously want to punch these parents square in the face. Obviously, she was cold. She was soaking wet, she was injured, and she was naked. So James and Mary were told that they couldn't baby Jessica, which is why they chose to leave her in that condition. After Courtney and Ethan left the house between 7 and 7:30, Mary texted them to see if she could care for Jessica. Honestly, why would you even ask? This shouldn't have even happened in the first place. Why would you ask them if you could care for Jessica? Go and aid to your helpless 4-year-old child. So as all of this is unfolding, the sheriff doesn't think that this is cult related. And while others in their religion may not have physically hurt their kids to death, apparently this is not out of the norm and has absolutely happened in this community.
And they were doing it in the name of discipline, disciplining the family was their quote. There's this huge difference between discipline and beating.
Now, Sheriff Eric Knox calls this the worst case he's seen in his career. The criminal complaints state that Courtney Amon and Ethan Mast started beating members of the Mast family 5 weeks ago with a belt and a wooden spoon. Sheriff's deputies found James and Mary Mast's 4-year-old daughter dead on December 20th after James called 911. James told deputies the neighbors convinced him this was, quote, a God thing. James said his neighbors beat him, his wife Mary, and their 4-year-old daughter, and also their 2-year-old son, and that he allowed it to happen and shouldn't have fallen for it. The 4-year-old and Mary were also dunked in an icy pond.
One or more of them were fanatics. Like I put in my Facebook post, this is an isolated incident. Some people tried to say that this was the cult because they used the word demon, and obviously demon and God in the same sentence, would cause speculation for imaginations to run wild. But there's no evidence of anything other than this family and basically two families.
Courtney and Ethan were both charged with second-degree murder, 3 counts of first-degree assault, and first-degree SA. And the SA charge apparently stemmed from an incident of them attacking Mary. On December 24th, Mary and James were arrested. Mary was charged with endangering the welfare of a child and first-degree domestic assault. She's now been charged with first-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, and first-degree assault. And James was charged with 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. In April 2021, his charges, however, were upgraded to first-degree murder, first-degree assault, and armed criminal action. Both James and Mary have pled not guilty. They each got out on a $500,000 surety bond and have GPS monitors now. The other 2 boys, who were originally in foster care with a wonderful family who wanted to adopt them, but then they were sent to be with their biological grandparents. So we can only hope that the grandparents are keeping them far away from their monster parents and don't also practice this type of religion. Courtney's charges were also upgraded to first-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, and first-degree assault. Same went for Ethan. However, Courtney's murder charge was later revised back to second degree. She's still in jail, but she was granted a change of venue. James, Courtney, and Mary had their initial court dates together, and honestly, it seemed like a joke. Mary was even smiling throughout the court appearance. After the arrests, Phyllis, Ethan's wife, released a statement, and I'm going to read that for you here. It says, "I want to express my shock and devastation at the recent circumstances involving our family and the James Mast family. My heart bleeds for those who are hurt and devastated by this tragedy, as well for myself and my children. I understand there are many questions from the public, including questions about my involvement. There are things that even I do not understand. At this time, I am not free to publicly discuss this situation due to legal constraints. I am cooperating in a transparent and forthcoming way with law enforcement investigators and those who are helping me walk through this. I respect the upcoming judicial process and desire that justice be done. Thank you for your prayers. Please continue praying for everyone, including the extended families of everyone involved." Honestly, not the worst statement I've ever heard, but also not the best statement. She's saying she can't cooperate due to certain constraints. Maybe it's because she can't testify against her husband, who knows. But in any event, not the worst statement I've ever seen. Not necessarily a woman standing by her man. So Courtney's mom, Diane, also posted a statement, but hers was very different. It was as if she believes her daughter is innocent in all of this. Maybe she follows this religion too. I don't know. But let me read that statement for you. She says, "As the start of this new year, I just want to say how thankful I am for a loving father who is tenderly and graciously carrying our family through this difficult time. Even through all the false accusations, gossip, backbiting, twisted truth, etc., with many not even knowing the whole story. We have peace," Jesus said. "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." We are experiencing that even in our sadness and grief. Our hearts are humbled at the many, many phone calls, texts, visits, gifts, words of encouragement, etc. we have received from faithful friends and dear family. You don't know how strengthening and uplifting they are to all of us. We are encouraged that there is always hope in every situation, and the blood of Jesus is there for all. We love you all and have given everything into the hands of God, and in the end, the truth will come forth and justice will be served. We have nothing to hide. We know where we stand before God as a family. The gossip and slander we have heard that is going on only proves to us the enemy is out to kill, steal, and destroy. But greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. We never in a million years ever imagined ourselves up against something this hard, but it's here and we are choosing to trust God with it. As parents, you never stop loving your child regardless of anything that happens in his or her life. You just keep praying for them and believing God is not done. Keep praying for all involved for redemption and repentance, that in the end of this confusing and sad situation, God will receive all of the glory. I'm sorry, I don't like that statement one bit. I feel she's leaning way too heavily on the religion. That's just my personal opinion. I also think it's horrible that she's saying, you don't know the whole story, don't judge. Hey, chick, we don't need to know the whole story. We know enough of the story. We know what happened. There were bruises, there were marks, a little girl is dead. Case closed, no need to know anything else in that story. Ethan took a plea deal in February, which gave him a reduced second-degree murder charge. He's awaiting sentencing, and the other 3 are awaiting trial. So I would love to know your theories on this case. Was Courtney the driving force behind all of this? Was she upset about the other 2 children not being hers, if in fact the young 11-month-old was hers? Did she want James all to herself and had to get these other children out of the way? Or was the main goal to physically hurt these children into submission? Or was there more to the story? What was that whole story of them being demonic and demons, which just kind of throws me right back to the Lori Vallow case all over again? Did these parents know all along that this demon idea was false? Or were they in fact brainwashed by Courtney and Ethan and actually believed it somehow? I have no idea, guys. This is some sick crap. And I can only hope that there aren't other children in that community or religion experiencing the same thing that these poor kids did. So I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts? Have you heard about this kind of religion and behavior out there? Is this something that really is common and not just an isolated rare occurrence? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. And we will see what happens at trial. We'll see what new evidence comes forward. We'll see what this vindication that Courtney's mom is speaking of. And hopefully 4-year-old Jessica gets the justice that I believe, and I'm sure you do, she so desperately deserves. Thanks for tuning in with me today, guys. I know it was a tough one, but I appreciate you sticking through. Again, if you're brand new and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, but you want to and you want to support the channel, hit that subscribe button below. It's totally free. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up on your way out. All right, guys, leave your comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm fascinated to know what you guys think about this case. Until the next case, stay safe. Bye.